All right, everybody. I'm starting this at 9:56. I'm doing this as audio only because otherwise it would not be posted tonight. And I know a lot of you guys are waiting for this. So I'm going to just go ahead and do this audio only. Hope it doesn't ruffle anyone's feathers or anything. So let's get started. Some questions from the audience. TJ, I legit paused the porn I was watching to see this video. What do you think of that? I think that you have your priorities all out of whack. When you pause pornography to listen to a fat guy make announcements about a podcast, your shit's out of whack, dude. And you need to focus more on your whacking. Shit's out of whack, so you gotta whack more. It's perfectly logical. Who would you rather fuck, G-Man or the Vigilant Christian? I think I would definitely prefer the Vigilant Christian, but I don't know, I haven't seen either of them naked, so that would be a factor. I also feel like maybe I could get along with the Vigilant Christian Mario a little better because, G-Man seems like, even though he's unreasonable, he seems like an unreasonable adult. Vigilant Christian seems like a spoiled child. So I would say that I would be able to handle him better because I think when he acts naughty, I could just give him a little spanking, and he'd probably fall in line. TJ, would you ever consider writing a book that's fiction? If so, what would it be about? I actually have a couple of novels completely written in rough draft form. But the drafts are so rough that there's no possible way I could release them. Maybe one day they'll get polished. I've always wanted to be a writer, and fiction is my forte. I have a lot of stories in my head. It's one side of my imagination that doesn't really get to be expressed on YouTube too much, since I'm not really geared towards storytelling in terms of what I do. I'm really more about offering up opinions and performance and things of that nature. But hopefully one day I'll get a chance to work on my fiction and maybe release a few novels. I hope I can release a few novels. I hope to make a movie at some point. And I would like to put out an album. Really, that's kind of my bucket list is put out an album, write at least 3 novels, and make at least 1 movie. I'd like for there to be more than that, but, those things I would like to accomplish. Maybe one day I'll get to that point where I can do it. Maybe not. I don't know. Really just kind of depends on how, the future goes, and no one really knows that. But yeah, probably the novels are the most attainable for me at this point. So, I'm going to probably write some novels. If I don't die of a heart attack in the next 2 or 3 years, there probably will be some novels written. Right now, though, I'm working, although not nearly as much as I should be, on my autobiography, which at this point is tentatively titled, Don't Piss Your Pants, because then you'll have to wash them. But there's the story about that is I was on LSD, and I was laying halfway between my bedroom and my bathroom. The top half of my body was in the bedroom, and the bottom half was in the bathroom. And I was literally less than a foot from the toilet, and I did not want to stand up to take a piss, so I was seriously contemplating pissing my pants, and that was the logic that I used to convince myself to not piss my pants. I was like, no, if I piss my pants, then I'll have to clean them, so I'm going to get up and piss like normal. So that's where the title comes from. But I have progress has been slow on that book. Hopefully I'll get a little bit more into a steady work rhythm at some point in the near future, because I definitely want to put out that book as soon as I possibly can. Do you think Bernie Sanders will keep his promises if he wins the presidential election? Even though it has been shown that all politicians lie. I remember there was an old Q&A, blah, blah, blah. I think that I don't ever believe a politician's promises. I mean, especially not someone who's running for president because, there's lots of impediments. A president is not a dictator, so there's no way that their agenda is just going to unfold without challenge, especially someone like Bernie Sanders who has a very leftist agenda. But I think that the fact that he has been so consistent in terms of where he stands over the years, I would say there's remarkable consistency there. He has high approval ratings among his constituents as a senator. I would say that he's probably going to at least be guided by the principles that he claims to be. It seems like he always has been for his entire life. It'd be very strange to see that all of a sudden becoming president corrupts him. But I mean, I wouldn't put that past anybody. I could see how that position could be enormously corrupting for any person. But I suspect that Bernie would be pretty good in that situation. I don't know that he will be the nominee. I have my doubts, honestly. I think maybe he is still too liberal for America, but I will support his campaign. I plan to vote for him in the primaries when I get the chance, and hopefully he will be good. Are you going to try to quit smoking again? Currently, I am smoking 3 to 4 cigarettes a day. I don't know where my pack is currently. I've been having my girlfriend dole them out to me, monitor my my use. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's going to be more successful for me. I feel like I'm struggling less against the urge to smoke. I'm coming down from about 12 to 14 cigarettes a day. So 3 or 4 is kind of like the minimum I need to not feel that sort of withdrawal symptoms, at least not severely. I mean, right now I can feel myself wanting a cigarette. I can feel the withdrawal. I've tried to quit cold turkey. I have really bad withdrawal symptoms. I start to get depressed. I start to get headaches. I start to cough persistently. It's just really, really nasty, and I feel very tired and irritable, and so I'm trying to basically wean myself off at this point. My girlfriend, who I feel like has a very similar personality to me in a lot of ways, had success weaning herself off of cigarettes. So I'm hoping that I can have success in that respect as well. I'm going to just kind of steadily reduce it, and hopefully I'll get to the point where I can make peace with the fact that I'm never going to smoke a cigarette again. Because really that's been my problem in terms of quitting, is like I have a lot of difficulty accepting that there does come a point where you actually do have to quit. Quitting means you can't pick up even one more cigarette and smoke the damn thing. I'm just having a really tough time with that. I'm not good at denying myself things. I'm a very hedonistic person. I'm very susceptible to wanting material pleasures and creature comforts. And so it's very difficult for me to set up a boundary for myself and say, no, this behavior has to stop. Because so much of my personality is built around not respecting boundaries, around making my own rules, living life on my terms, all that sort of stuff. But, the downside of that is that sometimes self-control is very difficult for people who adhere to that sort of credo in life. But yeah, I do intend to quit smoking, and hopefully at some point I'll actually be able to put the willpower together to successfully give it up once and for all. Will you ever do cosplay? If so, what character would you like to play? I don't think I particularly look like any character in fiction. The only character I can think of that bears a resemblance to me, other than, some side characters here and there, is I kind of look like a fatter version of Hohenheim from Full Metal Alchemist. That's Edward and Alphonse's wayward father. Not a very interesting character to cosplay as, though. So I'd probably pick something that would conceal me more, like, I don't know, Darth Vader or Boba Fett or something. Given the opportunity, would you consider doing a porno with Mercedes? I'm pretty shy when it comes to sexual things like that. Obviously, I'm not shy about it in the sense that, everyone's seen, well, not everyone, but, people have seen pictures out there that exist in some video of various things that I did privately for the entertainment of mistresses that I was subbing for. But, those were instances where my trust was betrayed and stuff like that. But in terms of actually doing a scene with someone who's very attractive like that, I think I'd feel very self-conscious, me being, fat and unattractive and not well-endowed, sitting there trying to focus on doing a scene with someone who is very physically attractive and who has, taken cocks that could fit 12 of my cock into them. It'd be very uncomfortable to me. But maybe we could do something more softcore, like I could, I don't know, eat whipped cream off her tits or something like that. I might do that sort of thing. Maybe I'll shove a banana up her ass. Just as long as I can keep most of my clothes on, I'd be fine. I'll finger fuck her or eat her pussy or something. So yeah, I guess if it was on that level, maybe. Why won't you have Josh Feuerstein on the show? I've never refused to have him on the show. I don't really have much contact with Josh. Excuse me. He has reached out before, but I haven't heard from him in a while. I think I tried to contact him a few times about being on the show. He never really responded. He's bigger than the show is. I mean, there's no real impetus for him to come on our show. But I mean, if I ever had the opportunity to get him on there, I sure would. Do you know how to build a clock? Yeah, you take a clock apart and then put it back together inside of a pencil case. That's how you do it. Matt Schroeder, did you see the first episode of the new season of South Park? If so, do you think they handled the whole PC issue correctly? I have not seen it, so I can't answer that. What time period you think it was the most deadly for an atheist? I think that for most of human history, denying the gods that the people around you worshipped is probably not the best idea. At least not publicly denying it. I mean, we know that in certain time periods, Christians would kill you for your atheism. Like the Dark Ages, or the Middle Ages, as people like to call them now. TJ, what do you think of the creation of memorials on almost every terrorist attack and other disasters? People like memorials. People like to have some sort of reminder. Some shit went down here at one point. Here's a fucking statue, or here's a monument, or a big wall with people's names on it who died, or whatever. People like that. Like it's like a memento or a keepsake for the country to remind them of something that happened. There's nothing wrong with it. I don't have any problem with it or take any issue. I don't see why I would. Any word on when the douchebag Bible will ship out? We have a current batch of orders that should ship out in a week or two, and then more will be available for sale. Which do you prefer, penises or vaginas? It depends on the penis or vagina. But, I would say I have a tendency towards thinking penises look more attractive. Although I would say that female bodies tend to look more attractive to me as well. So I don't know. I would say that slight preference for penis over vagina, but really depends on the individual case. Not so much just the organs themselves. I've seen penises and vaginas that were both beautiful and disgusting and everything in between. So, when did Scotty become an atheist? He became an atheist, I don't know. As far as I can remember, Scotty's always been an atheist. I don't remember Scotty ever professing faith in God. I don't remember Scotty ever claiming to believe in any sort of deities or anything like that. He's been an atheist as long as I can remember him. I don't know that he was very into atheism or if he's ever really been deeply into it. He thinks religion is stupid. And looking at the world from Scotty's mindset, I can definitely see why he feels that way. He's a very logical person. He likes to live within parameters. He likes for things to make immediate sense in the here and now and be very practical. He's much more practical than I am, even. So I would say that, to Scotty, the idea that there's some magical man in the sky that's looking out for you or that's going to punish you or anything like that, it just seems like a ludicrous notion to him. And I share his impression of its ludicrousness, but I don't feel like it was ever something that we had to talk about much. I think we both kind of at a young age just really implicitly rejected the idea of a god or gods. It just never really made sense to us. It was never something that we much bought into. That banana that you shoved up your ass in that video, what did you do with it afterwards? The banana just went right in the trash. Nothing interesting happened to it. It wasn't like I went and put it back in the kitchen and someone later on ate it or anything funny like that. I just threw it away in the garbage. I know, missed opportunity, right? I didn't know it was going to be a famous banana at some point. Do you guys intend to do more gaming videos in the future? Yes, we are doing more Rage Feed videos, and in fact, if you become a $1 patron on the DP Patreon at patreon.com/DP, you can get early access to the newest Rage Feed content. So there'll be some new content happening very early next month, and if you sign up on the $1 level or more, before the end of this month, and your money goes through, you will get early access to that Rage Feed content that we will be producing. You'll be able to watch us as we live stream the content, and later on it will be cut up and added to the YouTube channel, Rage Feed, youtube.com/Rage Feed, I believe, I hope. But if not, it should be easy to find with a search. I am transgender, but have not even started my transition in any way yet. I just turned in an application for a new job, and I'm probably going to get the job. Should I bring up the fact that I'm trans and have a different name I like to go by than the one on my birth certificate? I would say it depends on, are you willing to possibly get into some shit? Does your employer seem like they're progressive and forward thinking, or, I mean, it's up to you. I mean, just realize that, you might get into some shit. This might become a big issue. It might not, it just depends on the sensibilities of your employer. And, you should probably check, too, if you're in a state that has protections for transgender people. Most don't, but some do. There's lots of things you should factor into that decision, honestly. But ultimately, it comes down to what you're willing to do. Hey, TJ, what's your favorite type of sex toy? Probably butt plugs. I have an inflatable one that's very fun. Actually, though, I have this thing called the Thunder Stick. That's a vibrator that's very, very powerful. And while it's not useful on me, I enjoy using it on others. TJ, will you do anything special for 1 million subs, or is it not something you think's important? I don't personally attach much weight to numbers like that. I never understand why people are obsessed with certain numbers, like why there's so many top 10 lists. I've even done them myself, but I don't understand what's magical about 10. It just seems like people are psychologically attracted to it for some reason. And 1 million is another one of those. It's these higher and higher denominations of 10. 10 and 100 and 1,000 and 1 million and 1 billion and so on and so forth. They love these big divisible by 10 numbers. Like every time you add another zero after a 1, people are like, wow, we're in a whole new set now. I guess that fascinates people, that we added a new figure. But I'll probably do something to celebrate it, just because, I could see why people think it's a big deal, I guess. I personally don't put a lot of stock into the whole, it's 1 million, it's, wow, now my channel feels so much more official and real now that there's 1 million, or whatever. Does this guy fuck? Who's this? What guy? Me? Do I fuck? Occasionally. Sure. Do you think people should be able to choose their race? What do you mean choose? Like get a racial surgery to change their race or something? I mean, I don't really give a fuck. I kind of just believe in respecting whatever identity people want to have, as long as it's not some giant imposition on me to do so. If someone has all this stuff that I have to do special for them, then fuck that. But, if there's just reasonable requests, like, someone says, I'm a dragon inside. It's like, okay, well, what do I have to do? Nothing. Just, I'm just letting you know I'm a dragon. But, it'll never factor in beyond that. I'm just a dragon inside. I might make fun of that, but I mean, I don't really give a fuck. If they want to think they're a dragon, they can be a dragon. If some white person says they're black, for all I know, maybe they do identify more with that for some reason. They're more identified with that culture or whatever. Fine. I don't care. Just be whatever the fuck you want to be. The whole idea of liberty and freedom is that you can decide your own fucking identity, because if we don't have the ability to determine that, then all other liberty is basically useless. What do you think about the fact that there's 10 to 15-year-olds that watch the Drunken Peasants podcast? Also, you're garbage. I mean, when I was 10 years old, I was watching George Carlin and Bill Hicks and shit, so actually maybe I hadn't discovered Bill Hicks just yet, but I was definitely listening to Carlin. So, I mean, I don't care. I think it's good for kids to be subjected to things that are maybe a little bit beyond what their parents would want them subjected to. TJ, would you ever be willing to be roasted on the Drunken Peasants? You have a bunch of guests like G-Man, Scotty, Cena, Armored Skeptic, Paul's Ego, and more. And if you're too much of a pussy to do it, then would you consider doing it as a Patreon goal? I think that I feel like every episode is already a roast. They already go after my ass, so I don't see how it'd be any different. If Josh Feuerstein would agree to come on the DP podcast, I already said I'd have him on. Fine, yeah. TJ, what do you think of the public school curriculum? I'm not impressed with the curriculum of public schools. And it is different wherever you go. I mean, I went to public school in Washington State and in Louisiana, and Washington State's curriculum was pretty respectable. Louisiana's curriculum was a fucking joke. So I guess it's different from state to state, for one thing. But most of my school experiences were unpleasant. I felt like school was designed for the success of one very particular type of student, and anyone who didn't exist within that paradigm of, you have to be an extrovert and you have to be a very kind of like compliant personality that doesn't really think outside the box and doesn't really question much. And, you have to enjoy rote memorization of information and then regurgitating that information back. And, you have to like standardized tests and multiple choice questions. And, unless you're that type of person, I feel like it's not for you. Or, there's a few other types of people that flourish there. Like, if you're a certain type of athletic person, or you're a certain kind of girl, that likes the IRL social networking and shit like that, then maybe, you thrive. But for, tons and tons of people, they find themselves square pegs people are clumsily trying to shove in round holes. It may be kinky, but it's a bad idea. Since your I Quit video relative to smoking, have you not smoked a single one, or do you have to give credit to vaping? I don't find vaping to be a particularly good substitute for smoking cigarettes. There is a certain beauty and subtlety to smoking a cigarette that vaping just does not have. I think there's a poetry to smoke. I enjoy the feel of it in my mouth. I enjoy the taste of it. I enjoy the way it feels as I breathe it into my lungs. I enjoy the way that it looks as it, curls up into the air and forms these complex, wispy structures. I love seeing things like smoke rings and the different kinds of smoke. Like there's big, bushy, billowy smoke, and then there's this very stringy, sort of serpentine smoke. I enjoy all of that. I mean, there's just something to the process of it, and watching the paper burn a little more with each drag, and seeing the red tip and the fire, and just, holding a little fire in your hands and breathing in the smoke there's something about that has a romance and a poetry to it to me, that, I just don't feel that when I use a vape. Even though I still get the nicotine, it's like I'm addicted more to the process of smoking almost than I am to the chemicals of it. And it's really that process that I have a hard time letting go of. Because, I can get the nicotine any other way. I mean, the cigarettes I smoke are already chemical-free, other than, the naturally occurring chemicals in tobacco, because they're just tobacco. There's no chemical additives. So I'm not addicted to all the crazy other shit that Marlboro and Camel puts in its cigarettes. The only chemical addiction I could have is to the nicotine, or maybe there's some other addictive compounds in just pure tobacco. I don't know. But I feel like I'm more so than being addicted to the nicotine. I feel like I'm addicted to the process of smoking and the the experience of it and how it feels to me and what it means to my life. And, sometimes I can see how smoking is disgusting. Especially when I'm smoking in front of someone else, I feel really disgusted with the habit, and I feel really weak that I can't put it aside. But, when I'm smoking alone, it's a very different story. It's very easy to just light up one after the other and just chain smoke. But I obviously have not been doing that lately. Like I said, I'm down to 3 or 4 cigarettes a day. Do you have any serious plans or aspirations for the future concerning your life? Well, you already kind of heard my bucket list earlier. As for plans, though, I really don't do those so much. I know that some people think it's crazy to live your life without making plans, but I've always been a big believer in the idea of if you want to make God laugh, make a plan. And obviously, I'm an atheist. I don't have a literal interpretation of God, but the sentiment remains the same. Plans, nothing goes according to plan. Nothing goes according to any plan. That doesn't mean you should never make plans, obviously. But I'm not particularly adept at it. It's not the way I work. And I'm a firm believer in different strokes for different folks. It's like the reason that I get upset sometimes with Scotty and Ben and their perpetual uptightness is that they think that their way of doing things is objectively correct, and my way of doing things and looking at things is somehow objectively wrong. And the reality is that there are pros and cons to the way that I view the world. There are pros and cons to the way that they view the world. And I don't see that acknowledgement on their part. I'm willing to acknowledge it. So I'm better than them, of course. How did you meet Paul's ego? I've never met him. I mean, we've talked a little bit outside of YouTube. Most of the conversations we've ever had have been public. He's a funny guy. I really like him. I think he adds a new dimension and element to the show. Always liked Paul. Always thought he was an amazing talent. I'm glad to see that he's starting to maybe come out of his shell a little bit more. Maybe starting to overcome some of the depression that's had him down in the past. And I've dealt with depression myself, and I know that it's difficult to handle that sort of thing. And there's definitely times when I succumb to depression again. And become very unmotivated and find it very difficult to see much purpose in anything. But I find that as I get older, those times get more and more infrequent. I'm just not as crushed by the existential weight of my own nihilism anymore. I find things like moral and existential nihilism to not be so much threatening, but, a golden opportunity. If there is no God and there is no meaning, then that means that I can be my own God and create my own meaning. And I think that's a very powerful idea. As long as you temper that with some sense of, you can't become totally cloistered into your own narcissism. You cannot become so self-involved that you fail to see that other people occupy this world with you. As long as you can become your own God without getting lost in your own ego, I think it's a good thing to be. So the next time G-Man asks me if I'm my own God, my answer is absolutely. Now bow down before me. I'm sure you guys are eager for this video to come out. I was planning on doing a little longer than 34 minutes, but I feel like I've addressed quite a few good questions here. And I'm really eager to just get this video up as soon as possible so that you guys get this. So I'm going to go ahead and stop here. But it's been a blast. I hope you guys will tune in to tomorrow's show, Tuesday, 8:30-ish, maybe. I don't know. We might do an earlier show because of this postponement. But we'll definitely keep you updated on that. Just keep your eyes peeled and watch the skis, as The Simpsons once said. And you guys enjoy your day or your evening or whatever the fuck time it is for you.